So my name is Laura and this is Perth. It's no mistake that Australia is one of the newest countries in the world, and Perth, where I'm from, has only been a city for a few years. Well, that's just because a few years ago we called it town, but yeah, technically it's a city.
But in all seriousness, Perth was only proclaimed a city 167 years ago. The Whadjuk Noongar people have actually been here for about 45,000 years, but their life unfortunately was turned upside down in 1829 when Captain James Stirling set up what was called the Swan River Colony. So even though Perth is a pretty new city compared to many other places in the world, there are some pretty old things to see when you visit Perth.
So let me show you some of the oldest things that Perth has to see, starting with the Horseshoe Bridge.
Built in 1904, this unique shaped bridge is actually Perth's oldest traffic bridge that's standing today. It was built in an aid of preventing congestion due to the railway line that cuts the city centre from the northern suburbs. The bridge's unique shape is due to the fact that there was limited land available for the approaches needed to create access to the bridge, as gradients needed to be taken into account for horse-drawn carriages. The bridge is still a main access point for most motorists today.
So moving back even further, we go to 1895.
Every city needs a park, and Perth Park, which is the original name for Kings Park, was opened. The park is situated on Mount Eliza, with panoramic views of the city, the Swan River, and the Darling Ranges. Kings Park was originally used by a volunteer rifle group, a type of civilian militia. Kings Park also holds a freshwater spring called Kennedy Spring, and it's the only spring in the area, which is why Captain James Stirling and the Swan River Colony chose this position to set up a town site, and to that, Perth was born. Kings Park is the largest city park in the world, just shy of about 1,000 acres, and it's famous for its stunning wildflower display in the Kings Park Botanic Garden.
Now, I'm pretty sure I got this right.
In the suburb of Woodvale, we have Perth's oldest surviving ruin called Perry's Paddock. Due to the European settlement, Aboriginal people were pushed further north and settled around the waterholes of Lake Munga and Lake Joondalup. But a steady supply of food was needed to keep up with European settlers, so agricultural farming was established on the wetlands of the Yalungonga's Moora people's land. The colonial government approved 10 land grants north of Perth, and Perry's Paddock was one of them. Perry's Paddock was purchased in 1843, and Perry's Shed was built by George Shenton Sr., who died in 1867. The land has been used for farming, even horse breaking and stock dealings in the 1900s. Surprisingly, the ruins of the cottage of Perry's Paddock wasn't actually heritage listed until the year 2000, but today it's actually a very popular photography hotspot.
So with all the new settlers coming in, unfortunately there's actually been quite a few shipwrecks off the coast of Perth. So in 1842, a lighthouse was built.
Completed in 1851, on the tallest point of Rottnest Island, a 16-metre tall lighthouse was built. But unfortunately, another 7 shipwrecks, it was realised the lighthouse would not do, and the lighthouse that I'm showing you now was built. This one stands at 38 metres tall and was completed in 1896. Currently, the new, or should we say the old lighthouse, is the 4th tallest lighthouse in Australia. There isn't much left of the original lighthouse, just a small square building at the base to remember those that have been lost at sea.
Alright, time for a drink.
It is well known that Aussies like to drink, so of course one of the oldest things in Perth is a pub. The Rosen Crown in Guildford, in fact. Built in 1841 by Thomas Jex, who added an inn to the line of businesses that included a general store and a warehouse, much of which can still be viewed today along Swan Street in Guildford. The inn was used as a public meeting place and even a court due to the lack of town hall. Remnants of how people once lived are present at the Rosen Crown, with horse stables at the rear and a well in the cellar. Theories of a tunnel connecting the Rosen Crown to the Swan River, where possibly settlers rolled barrels of rum from the river, but it can only be proven by excavating the veranda and the bricked up opening at the front of the tavern, so I don't think that's happening. The pub is now used as a popular bar, restaurant and function centre. Oh, And did I mention it's haunted?
So after all that, should we be heading to church?
Built between 1838 and 1841 is Western Australia's oldest church, called All Saints Church. The church was built by Richard Edwards, whose grave overlooks the church under an olive tree today. Captain James Stirling had actually first camped on this location in Henley Brook when he first travelled up the land in 1827, and it was here that the idea of a state arose in his heart and mind. Church services were regularly held in the area at the beginning of the Upper Swan settlement. Fun fact, the suburb of Ellenbrook, to which this church sits next to, was actually named after Ellen Stirling, who is Captain James Stirling's wife, who had always adored the River Brook to where All Saints Church sits today. And the area was actually first called Ellensbrook. The church held its first service in 1841 and actually still holds services every Sunday to this day.
So just a year after that, in 1837, Perth's first courthouse was built.
The old courthouse is actually the oldest surviving building in Perth City today. It may be small, but remember, we were not accommodating for as many people back then. This building has been used as a town hall, a church, a school, a theatre, and of course, a courthouse. There is also adjoining rooms that have been turned into a small museum with significant pieces of Perth's past.
Have you ever noticed an old mill in Perth?
Seen from the side of the freeway by the Swan River in South Perth is an old mill. The mill was used in 1835 and was used as a flour mill up until 1859, producing roughly 680 kilograms of flour a day. The mill has also been used as a dance hall and even a hotel, but later it was used for a chicken run and even a house. The mill is now part of the National Trust due to its architecture and history, and it's also known as Perth's oldest link to pioneering of the area.
Did you know the very first building that was ever erected in Western Australia was actually a prison? And the prison was to hold convicts, used to help build the construction of our city of Perth.
Still standing today, the Roundhouse was the first building built by the Swan River Colony. The colony was living in tents, but needed a place to hold convicts and criminals. The Roundhouse was built in the late 1830 and was first used in 1831, and it sits close to the river's mouth in the port town of Fremantle. The prison has 8 cells and 1 other room. Oh, and 1 bucket, which was the toilet. The purpose of the Roundhouse was to hold convicts who were there to develop the infrastructure of the Swan River Colony. They were put to work throughout the day, and a bell was rung to signal curfew for the prisoners to return to their cells at night.
But did you know that Perth City has something that's even older? 2,000 years older, to be exact. Thromolites.
Here at Lake Clifton, near Mandurah, you can see thromolites. Scientists believe that stromolites and thromolites are the earliest signs of life that could date back to roughly 3,500 million years ago, with the origins of oxygen in our atmosphere. Thromolites are microorganisms too small for the human eye to see. There are theories of how these ones were formed, that groundwater, which is high in calcium, upwells into the lake. Microorganisms living in the environment are able to precipitate the calcium bicarbonate from the water as they photosynthesize, forming the mineralized structures that you see. These are classified as living fossils. Now, you may have noticed that I've said both stromolites and thromolites. Well, stromolites are finely laminated, where the thromolites are not. If you want to see the stromolites, you have to travel a few days up the coast all the way to Shark Bay just to be able to see them. So, to be able to see these ones here, only an hour and a half out of Perth City, that's pretty cool.
Okay, so that was some of the oldest things that you can see when you visit Perth here in Western Australia. I hope you come, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.